Welcome back. Leader of the Coalition of Independents, Lincoln Bain, stepping into the hot seat tonight as we continue our lively discussion on capital punishment. Government has already stated that its focus is not on punishment, but prevention. But if you ask Bain, he'll tell you that murderers and those who commit heinous crimes should face the death penalty. No questions about it. So he joins me live tonight, and I intend for us to have a lively discussion on why he's so adamant that capital punishment must be dealt to criminals, and have an in-depth look into legislation he says his party has drafted in hopes of being elected. Welcome to the show, Mr. Bain.
Thank you for having me.
You sent out a blast earlier today saying that you are having a press conference as well as a demonstration, I think on Wednesday.
Yes.
And during that demonstration, you will present, I don't know, to the government or to the people, legislation that you have drafted or your party has drafted in order to carry out capital punishment. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, yes, we're going to present to both the governing party and the opposition an actual referendum to amend the Constitution, the laws of our country, to make capital punishment mandatory.
In which cases?
In cases of murder. Okay. And so when persons are accused of murder, we can't have another country that is against capital punishment making the decisions for us. The fact of the matter is there's nothing hindering us if we codify in the law to say what the worst of the worst is, or to just change the Constitution to make it mandatory. There's nothing stopping us, and the Privy Council will only have the power to enforce the law.
So your solution is to define what the worst of the worst is in order for the Privy Council to allow us to be able to carry out the death penalty.
Well, we've moved past defining what the worst of the worst is, because that's the Privy Council's excuse to not be able to.
So what would your definition of it be in your legislation?
So basically, what we're going to release to the public on Wednesday, I released it on my live yesterday, but what we're going to release is that we are amending Article 16 of the Constitution, which is the right to life. And we're going to add Section 3 and other sections to say that a person convicted of murder shall be given the death sentence.
Anybody convicted of murder?
That is anybody, of course, except persons with mental illness, right? But it's anybody convicted of murder.
Now, I'll pose to you the same question that I spoke to both Peggy and Candy about. How do you trust that the person who's going before the courts and who is charged and convicted with murder is the actual culprit when a lot of people don't have trust in the judicial system and don't have trust in the police?
And this is why we need change in our country. One of the reasons we need change in our country is because persons don't have trust in the police and they don't have trust in the judicial system. But in the meantime, we have to put the proper laws in place, including this one, to get to where we need to get. We have to start enforcing the laws. The law is on the books, and you can't tell our children to be law-abiding if we are not enforcing the laws on the books. We have to address this. We have to deal with this. Listen to me. People are saying that the UN doesn't want this, the UN doesn't want that. That's not true. 3 of the 5 members of the UN Security Council who have veto power, they execute people. America executed 22 people this year alone, up to September 25th. They executed 22 people. The last person executed was executed on the 21st. And so we are a sovereign nation, and we must do what it takes. And you're going to see how well drafted this document is so that we can now take action. We need action in this direction because we are suffering. We are dying as a country. Our police force is failing us. The leadership is failing us.
So what do you think the problem is? Is it the method in which we would be carrying out capital punishment? I know Maria Daxton talked about getting rid of hanging and doing the lethal injection. Is that something that your party is also pushing for?
There are many ways that capital punishments are carried out today. It includes lethal injection, and the newest way that they just did on the 21st in Alabama is by nitrogen. All right, nitrogen hypoxia. And so they're using nitrogen gas to instantly replace all of the oxygen in your body with nitrogen, and you instantly die. And so that's one of the things that they're doing. And so there are ways to get this done. The fact of the matter is we must get it done. It is a deterrent. I want you to understand that I was very disappointed at our Prime Minister when he made that statement saying it's not a deterrent. I can tell you, if you look at the numbers, in 1996, there were 56 murders. After they executed those 2 persons that year, the murders went down to 44, okay? And the same thing happened again in 1998. The murders didn't increase because people saw what was going on.
Right.
In 2000, it went from 74 murders to in the 40s again. So people saw that, wait, the government seems to be serious. And I'm going to say this and keep saying this to you. Killers don't want to die. A study that they did of housebreakers, they did this in America. They said that their biggest fear was that they would break in your house and you would have a gun. All right? And so what does that mean? They don't want to die. And they don't want the law being carried out against them.
But even if it's not a deterrent, if it's a punishment, isn't that enough?
That's the biggest thing. It is a deterrent. Sorry, it is a deterrent and it is a punishment.
Right.
It doesn't matter if it's a deterrent. Okay? Because if you use that logic, which makes no sense, then you shouldn't give people tickets for running the red light, because people keep doing it. You shouldn't, well, the recidivism rate of prison is 80%. So that means prison is not a deterrent, because the fellas keep coming back. So with that in mind, it's not a deterrent.
Yeah.
All right? So we need real change. And I will tell you that our government is failing, because they can put legislation in place. The opposition is failing, because I want everyone to know that the opposition has the power to draft and table bills. Any member of parliament can do that, all right, as long as it's not a money bill. And so instead of the opposition going out there and crying they want the government to do this and do that, they can go and table a bill themselves, Francesca.
So what do you think is the problem then? What do you think, why do you think this government, the opposition, successive governments have not either tabled a bill to carry out capital punishment or carried out capital punishment themselves? What do you think is stopping it? What do you think is the problem?
Personally, I can't speak for them, but I will say, based on what it appears to me, it appears that the persons who are responsible for writing the laws benefit from crime. Because we keep putting We keep putting lawyers to run this country. I'll give you an example. Right now, the Prime Minister is a defense lawyer. In fact, he defended the last person who was hung. And so that was David Mitchell. And we now have the Max Otito case, and one of his lawyers was Wayne Monroe.
You think one of the problems is that we have lawyers who have defended criminals in the past now sitting in the House of Assembly?
If you have been defending criminals all your life, and now you come to the point where you should be... But that's not your job anymore, right?
Your job now is to run the country.
Yeah, but
your job now is to make sure that you and I are safe.
Yes, but clearly, they don't see it as their job. They seem to still be looking out for the criminals. And this is where the problem comes in. When you have a Minister of National Security making statements like, oh, that 4-year sentence against the man who raped the girl is too harsh. That's a strange statement. Why are you making these statements? You're the Minister of National Security. You're not Attorney General. That's not your job. We need you to go out there and defend us, to keep our country safe. We don't want your comments about criminals and what's too harsh for them. We need real solutions.
So how do we know that you're going to give us these real solutions? How do we know that this isn't rhetoric? You know, elections are coming up. You want to be elected. You know, there are a lot of promises coming. How do we know that the things that you promised and the things that you're going to present to the public on Wednesday are things that you actually want and will and are actually able to carry out?
I've been fighting for these things for a long time, but the straight answer to you is you don't know. But what you do know is that under the PLP and FNM, you've not gotten it. You know what's going to happen with the PLP and FNM. More murders. The PLP is going to say the FNM has failed on crime. The FNM is going to say the PLP failed on crime. But guess what? Both of them are correct. They're right. Both of them have failed. And when the team is failing, the coach gets fired. And so we need to fire them because they have been failing and they are clearly not interested in punishing the people who have done us wrong. And so now we're hearing the opposition saying that we need to abide by the laws and this kind of stuff, but you didn't do it when you were there. We need to execute the criminals, and we need proper policing strategies.
I was going to say, the solution to crime cannot just be capital punishment. It can't just be.
That's not the solution to crime.
Okay.
It's the punishment for murder.
Okay.
And it is the rule of law. And if the law says murder, we can't have lawyers trying to find tricky ways to get us out of it.
Okay.
And if you see that the Privy Council is working against it, you have to change the law to tie their hands.
So you're not suggesting that we completely get rid of the Privy Council at all. You're suggesting that we write the laws to tie their hands so they can't stop us from carrying out executions.
We can be a sovereign nation. The reason that they have the Privy Council is because they feel that foreign investors won't trust us to govern ourselves, because if they have a civil case, they feel that we're corrupt. And so they want an outside voice. And that's why that's the excuse for keeping the Privy Council. But the Privy Council can only do what the law says. Okay. But if you leave it vague, then they have a choice to maneuver. We are going to codify it in the law, and we're calling people to come out on Wednesday at 9:30, and they will witness it. We're going to codify in the law that, and we're going to tie the hands of the Privy Council, and it is very easy to do, but they refuse to do it.
All right, Peg, we're going to bring you back into the conversation. I see you've been doing a little whispering over there and shaking your head. Obviously, you agree with some of the statements that Mr. Bain has been saying. You can elaborate on what it is that you wanted to say.
Well, one of the things that many people have been telling me, and of course my name, my presence is associated with the Free National Movement, and they say they want to hear stronger opposition on issues, like the issue of capital punishment. Lincoln Bain has gone as far as to draft a bill, and that is commendable. This morning I sent a challenge to Michael Pintat in a voice note. I said, will you commit to referendum if you become prime minister? People want these kind of, and you say a lot of people making promises, but that's all we have. And hope and trust in God that they will be men and women of integrity once they get into power. And so people have been telling me, Paige, you got to tell him he needs to be stronger. See, because a strong opposition, he's the opposition, he probably in the official opposition, will put pressure on the serving government administration to perform better, to hold them accountable. There's going to be a time when they draw swords, and that time is quickly approaching us. But there's a time now that we need them to work together to make sure that we are protected. I'm for one, you have to make sense to me about the Privy Council. They don't make sense to me.
So your suggestion is to just get rid of them altogether.
Put the question to the Bahamian people. Put the question in a referendum. Let us vote on it, the majority rule. Do you want capital punishment to remain on the books, or do you want it to be removed? This is my challenge.
Do you think it's something we should even carry to the public? Don't you think it's something that the government should?
See, because the government need to be mandated, and the Constitution need to be changed. So you have to take it to the people, according to my understanding.
Right, that's what Lincoln has suggested, that it is something that we do in the referendum.
Yeah, so based on the results, if the results is to remove it, so the conversation ends. If the results is to keep it, you get busy doing what Lincoln said, tying, I want to be so explicit.
You can't.
Tying these men and from interfering, from defining for us, for telling us a little boy sodomized and thrown in the garbage is not the voice for the voice.
All right.
Well, we're going to end that worst of the worst conversation because the law simply says if you kill, you must be killed. And that's the law. And so we're going to make sure that we tie their hands. And again, it is a referendum. We've already drafted the amendment to the Constitution. It's perfectly drafted. We put a clause in there for if a person is mentally insane, that's the only way out of this. And we've already drafted the referendum with the questions and the explanation to the questions. And so we think the Bahamians are going to appreciate this. So like I said, we're going to deliver it to the office of the Prime Minister. We're also going to deliver it to the office of the opposition. But we're going to Parliament and we're going to deliver it to the members of Parliament because we have to bring some change. And we've also visited the Commissioner of Police prior to this and given him ideas for ending crime, for solving crime in this country, for dealing with the gang problems, with the murder problems. We have suggested things to him that he said was great ideas, fabulous ideas, but they were not put into place. And so we are looking forward to the Commissioner of Police stepping down. Why are we saying that? Because he's failed.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I really wish we could have some more time to talk, but we got to wrap up. It's almost 9 o'clock. And you're starting a whole new kind of conversation.
Too much failures in place.
I guess this is something that you could always talk about on and on and on and on and on and on. But we have to kind of wrap up. Final words from the both of you before we end the show.
We need a country with meritocracy, where if our government is failing, they can be removed. And that's why we want to go to island states and city governments, and we want to be able to fire and recall politicians. We want to be able to vote to put our leaders in place, whether that is Commissioner of Police and other senior government positions. We are tired of these people being puppets of the government, and we're going to take power away from the politician and give it to the people. And so when we see a commissioner who is failing, we can fire him. It doesn't matter if he's a friend of the Prime Minister. But I just want to give my deepest sympathy and condolences to the people who have lost families, members all year. We are suffering, but we need to come together, so we invite you to come with us as we stand to bring the change that we need to see.
All right, Peggy, before we wrap up.
Women, I want to encourage you to turn your fear into fight. And if you are available on Wednesday, go out and support. This is not political. My party had a march on Saturday and I refused to go because I don't want to be attached to this situation in a political. You need to know how to remove yourself from your politics and do what is best for the country right now. And so if you're available on Wednesday, go out and support. No political party colors. And let's stand as one. We have to fight. We can't be afraid. We can't lock down. And so women, I'm calling on you, mothers, grandmothers, aunties, cousins, and the men who love us. Come out and join this fight.
Well, that's our show for tonight. Thank you guys so much for being here, and thank you for joining us. We'll see you back here tomorrow evening. For all of us, I'm Francesca Brown. Have a good night.